People are all happy to keep those vows when you're in the better part of the better or worse. But as soon as it gets into the worst part, it's like, well, my wife's having an affair. Well, that's covered under the worst part of the contract, my friend. Read your contract. Yeah, but it's like, yeah, but you promised to love her regardless of her behavior. Yeah, but she's not meeting my needs. Well, where is there anything about your needs getting met in this contract, my friend? It's like, if you expect your wife to follow you, if you want that mutual admiration and respect, stand up and own your vows, stand up and own the contract that you made, give us something to respect and see what happens.
Welcome to the Natural Health Matters podcast, where it's all about maximizing your health potential so that you can look and feel your best at any age. I'm your host, David Sandstrom, naturopathic doctor and biblical health coach, and this is episode number 93. Today we have in the show Cody Butler. Cody is coming to us from Sydney, Australia. He's the founder of The Better Marriage and the creator of the Marriage Recovery Program that teaches couples how to repair, restore, and rebuild intimacy, communication, and love in their marriage. His best-selling book is called Cut the BS, A No-Nonsense Guide to Happiness. Cody, welcome to Natural Health Matters.
Thank you so much for inviting me on and having me. It's my pleasure, no doubt.
Well, thank you for being here. And I think it's going to be a great conversation. I've been looking forward to this for a while. So I just wanted to emphasize the importance of what we're going to be talking about today. We're talking about marriage, which is our closest human relationship. And I believe that we maximize our health potential when we align our lives more fully with God's natural design for spirit, mind, and body. And the spiritual component to health is all about loving relationships, our love relationship with God and the love relationship we have with one another and the love relationship we have with ourselves. So if we're married, the most important one another relationship we have is our spouse. So we really, if we care about our health, we should look at getting that right. And even if you don't care about your health, I mean, life is just easier if you're getting along with your spouse, right? I mean, I don't have to talk anybody into that. The Bible has a lot of wisdom here. And in Genesis, right at the very beginning here, in Genesis chapter 2, verse 18, it says this: "It is not good for the man to be alone. I will make a helper suitable for him." And I'm always encouraged when I see modern science catching up with biblical truth that was written thousands of years ago. And just this morning, it was so easy to find. There's lots of these articles, but I found a journal published in the study published in the journal Public Health. And it was a meta-analysis published in 2017. And here's what they had to say. 8 databases were searched from 1950 to 2016, which is no small study. 40 systematic reviews were identified, largely from the developed world. Researchers found a significant association between social isolation and loneliness with increased all-cause mortality, with cardiovascular disease especially being tied to social isolation. So this idea of one another relationships and getting our spousal relationship right has huge implications to our health and wellness. And, I'm almost going to get sidetracked here, but I think we have to mention it with what's gone on with the shutdowns and the school closings and the mask wearing, the social isolation that we've experienced over the last couple of years worldwide is unprecedented, probably in human history. And I'm wondering, I'm sure we saved some lives with all those measures from COVID, but how many deaths and how much suffering did we create by causing loneliness and social isolation to be spiking? We may never know, but there's obviously a lot of people studying that these days. So as way of introduction, so Cody, you're an expert on marriage. So tell the Natural Nation a little bit about what you do and how you came to be doing that.
Yeah, so my mission and my ministry really has come out of my mess. My message has come out of my mess. So I've always longed for that soulmate relationship, as many of us have, and a number of times I've found myself in a relationship and then it just breaking down and ended up getting heartbroken, and that leading to depression, anxiety, causing other problems, the obviously my ability to function socially goes down as you're in that state of depression and anxiety. And it got to a point where I really couldn't get out of bed. I really couldn't. I was heavily drug dependent, became very alcohol dependent, which just created more problems. And I really wanted that relationship, but every time I found it, I couldn't hang on to it. I lost it. And so it really became the lowest common denominator through all of that, Dave, right, was me. I was the lowest common denominator. I was the only commonality in each one of those relationships. I really became quite obsessed with what relationships are, what makes relationships work, why are my relationships failing, and why are relationships in general failing when it's a God-ordained institution. It's a God-given, God has called us to be together, to be in union. So when God has called us to be together and to leave your mother and father and to cleave to your wife, and God has created a suitable helper for you. It's like we're designed to be together. Why is it that we can't be together? There's a mismatch here, and that really became my obsession. Was like, what is going on here? And through my own study, my own situation, going down every route I could possibly find to figure out what makes relationships work, and equally as important, what makes relationships fail. And it's actually very simple. What makes relationships work is actually very simple. But yeah, I found myself in my dream woman. She's in the room next door right now. It's quite late where she's in bed, but I finally met my dream spouse. And to be honest with you, Dave, the only thing that kept us married was her commitment, was her godliness, and her commitment to Christ, and her integrity to her own vows and her own marriage. That's the only thing that kept us married. That was the only thing.
Wow. God bless her, and he best blessed you by having her.
Absolutely. But he also turned that marriage around in a heartbeat. We can even go through that at some point during this conversation if you want. I mean, that marriage turned on a dime. I can tell you the very words that were spoken. I can tell you the actions that were enacted. I can tell you that the transformation that took place. I mean, it's crystal clear in my mind. And
well, I have to ask you, what was the big turning point? What was the rock that you moved, so to speak, that caused that transformation? There's probably a lot of them, but what was the big one?
Yeah. So what? I shone light into the darkness. I confessed my sins and I shone light into the darkness. I finally confided in my wife, and I confessed my sins too. I had serious drug and alcohol problems at the time. Serious drug and alcohol problems, and I'm very functional. I'm very functional when I'm in that state. It's like you wouldn't know. I mean, if I was drinking, which I'm not, I haven't drank for a long time. But if I was, you wouldn't know. Right now, I could be drunk right now, and you wouldn't know it, right? And every night, I'd be up in my roof drinking, and one night I just came down and just said, my wife was in the shower, and I just opened the door and I said, I need to tell you something right now. I said, I'm high and I'm drunk right now, and I've been high and drunk for a number of years now. Every time I'm up in the roof, that's what's going on. Is
wow.
I'm high and I'm drunk. And basically, to cut a long story short, we can go into more detail of this as we go. But there are three elements that need to be present in a successful marriage. There needs to be emotional safety and security. There needs to be mutual admiration and respect, and there needs to be shared vision and goal. And my wife's response to me when I confessed my sins to her, I confessed what I was doing. She goes, "I love you, and we're going to get through this." And in retrospect,
that's awesome.
Looking back at what happened, I mean, she provided emotional safety and security to continue to shine light into the darkness, which is confessing what's going on. There was obviously a mutual admiration and respect. I respected the way that she handled that situation, and she obviously respected the fact that I'd come clean. And then we instantaneously created a mutual vision and goal for the relationship, which was at that point to get through this particular juncture. So in an instant, but when before that moment, there was no emotional safety. If she said something to me, I was liable to beat her verbally. There could be no emotion. There could be no mutual admiration and respect because of the way I was behaving. And there was no shared vision and goal. My vision was to get drunk. Her vision was to heal the relationship. There was no shared vision. But in that one moment, those three elements came into alignment, and the relationship healed instantaneously. And it was literally spontaneous recovery. Literally spontaneous recovery.
That is awesome. That is so cool. I got chills. That is so cool. Couple of observations. So, if you go on the roof to drink and get high, do you think you have a problem? Maybe that's a little clue that there's a problem there. And the other was, we all say something like this when we take our marriage vows: to have and to hold, to love and to cherish, till death do we part. But do we really recognize the significance of those words when we take those vows? And it sounds like your wife did. Bless her heart for saying, you know what? It's okay. You got a problem? I'm here for you, and we'll get through this together. That was key to making things work for you.
That's exactly right, Dave. That's exactly right. And when I start talking to men, I say you got to, like, the vows that you've just said. You understand that is a one-way unconditional covenant where you give and get nothing back. I promise to
Right.
love you and to cherish you as Christ loves the church. I promise to have and to hold for better or for worse until death do us part. It's like that is a one-way unconditional promise, an unconditional covenant that you are making with your wife that requires nothing in return from her. So I
Right.
start working with men and they say, well, but my wife's doing this. And I'm like, there's no but. You made an unconditional, you entered into an unconditional one-way covenant in the same way that Christ has entered into that one-way unconditional covenant with you. When you
Yes.
accept Christ as your savior, it's a one-way covenant where he covenants to save you regardless of what you do at that point. It's a one-way unconditional covenant, and that's the same covenant. And the beginning of recovery is to own it. That people are all happy to keep those vows when you're in the better part of the better or worse. But as soon as it gets into the worst part, it's like, well, my wife's having an affair. Well, that's covered under the worst part of the contract, my friend. Read your contract. Yeah, but it's like, yeah, but you promised to love her regardless of her behavior. Yeah, but she's not meeting my needs. Well, where is there anything about your needs getting met in this contract, my friend? It's like, if you expect your wife to follow you, if you want that mutual admiration and respect, stand up and own your vows. Stand up and own the contract that you made. Give us something to respect and see what happens.
That is such good stuff. My wife and I have been leading marriage groups for the last 10 years. Our next group is starting in a couple of weeks. And on the first session, we do 16 sessions, and it takes us about 9 months to get through this book called Intimate Encounters. And I know that most of the people sitting in front of me come in and start a group like this with the expectation, I'm going to get my spouse fixed. This is going to be the thing that's going to get my spouse fixed. And I've got to tell them, stop looking at that person next to you right now. It's about changing yourself, because you can't change them. You only have control over what you do and say and think. When you start working on yourself, that's when the magic happens. And if you have two spouses doing that, you'll see some amazing things take place as far as your relational connectedness.
Absolutely spot on. And I, when I'm talking to people, they say, "Oh, my wife this," or "Oh, my husband that," or "Oh, my," it's like, let me tell you the truth. The mirror never lies. The person you are in front of right now is the mirror. The mirror never lies. And whatever it's as it says, you accuse because you are guilty. Be very careful of what you're accusing somebody of, because the Bible is very clear. You accuse because you are guilty. And the number of people that have gone, "Oh, but my wife's a narcissist," and I'm like, the mirror never lies, my friend. The mirror never lies. It's like you are seeing your behavior mirrored back to you through your wife. You're seeing your behavior mirrored back to you, and again, ultimately, it just simply doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what your husband or wife is doing. The problem is with you. Your vow, you made a one-way unconditional covenant, and if you're struggling with that, then we need to work on you, because there's integrity issues in you. There's leadership issues in you. There's ownership issues in you. There's responsibility issues in you. These are all issues that before we start working on the splinter in your wife's eye, we need to get this beam out of your eye, my brother, because these are all issues that have to be addressed. And even if what you're saying about your wife is true, then what right do you have to address those issues in her when we can just rattle these off one after the other? You're not leading your wife. You're not loving your wife. You're not doing this. You're not doing. It's like, let's fix you, and then when you're perfect, we'll shine the light on her and see what happens.
That's good. I love it. So a moment ago, you mentioned there was four, I think it was four ingredients to a successful relationship. One of them was mutual
Yeah,
respect.
three ingredients.
Three ingredients. So we had mutual respect. What were the other two?
So in order, it's emotional safety and security. Can
Okay.
you be 100% of yourself 100% of the time with your partner without fear of repercussion?
Okay.
There has to be emotional safety and security. Then the second element is mutual admiration and respect. And the third element is a shared vision and goal. It's a common purpose for the
Okay.
relationship.
Very good. So can we break those down,
Mm-hmm.
go a little deeper? How can someone nurture those qualities in their relationship?
Well, awareness is the first step. So when we look at the learning quadrant, we've got the four areas of learning, right? Most people are in a state of unconscious incompetence. So right now, most people have no idea that they've destroyed the emotional safety and security within, or the emotional security within a marriage. I talk to men all the time, and they say, "My wife just doesn't like talking." I'm like, "No, my brother, she doesn't like talking to you. She's a woman." That's like a man
Mm-hmm.
saying, a woman coming to me saying, my husband doesn't like sex. No, he doesn't like sex with you. He's a man.
Mm.
Saying that my
Mm.
wife doesn't like talking or my wife doesn't want to talk, it's because she's scared to talk or it's too painful to talk, or you've destroyed the emotional safety to where she's willing to sacrifice the most essential part of what she needs as a woman in order just to keep the peace. So most men are unconsciously incompetent at that point, and the first stage is to move to conscious incompetence. It's like, okay, well, I know I'm incompetent in the area of creating the emotional safety and security my wife needs, which is her deepest need, by the way. She needs security. A woman will forsake expansion for safety and security. A man
Yeah.
will sacrifice safety and security for expansion. A woman will
Yes.
sacrifice expansion for safety, and she needs that more than anything.
Yeah.
And the first stage is saying, I'm now conscious that I'm incompetent in that area.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's moving to conscious competence. This is where you start to learn the skills and you apply them competently. So learning to drive a car is a great example, right? Like, I've got a 6-year-old and he's like, "Dad, can I drive the car?" I'm like, "No, you don't know how, son." He's like, "Well, why can't I?" It's like he's unconsciously incompetent, right? He doesn't realize that he doesn't have the
Right.
skills.
He doesn't know how much he
He
doesn't
doesn't
know.
know how much he doesn't know. And then at some point he'll become consciously incompetent and go, "Oh, okay, that's why you don't let me drive the car." And then when we start driving, we can do it. We can consciously drive the car, but it does require our full consciousness. We're like, "Shut up, turn the radio off, don't talk, just quiet," right? It's like we can do it, but we have to have full consciousness for the competence. And then the final stage is moving to unconscious competence, and that's where we're sending text messages on the phone. We've got our knee on the wheel. We're changing the radio with our elbow. We getting a drink with the other hand. It's like we're almost 90% of the car is being driven on autopilot because we've become unconsciously
Yeah.
competent at the task. So it's
Mm-hmm.
really moving through those four quadrants, realizing that you're unconsciously incompetent right now, and then becoming consciously incompetent, and then moving to becoming consciously competent, and then finally moving to unconscious competence. And that's when
Unconscious
success is.
competence.
That's when you can't go wrong. That's when
I
you
love
can't
it.
screw
Four
up anymore.
parts. That's really cool. I like that a lot. Another concept I'd like to share with people is the Bible is full of if then statements. We love to, you stand in the grocery store line, there's a book on the promises of God. And there's lots of them, sure. But oftentimes, those promises have a condition attached to them.
Mm.
They have an if then statement. And one of the more famous ones is John 8:32. And you will know the truth, and the truth will make you free. So, yes, we can claim that, but we've got to read John 8:31 to really understand that. John 8:31 says, "If you continue in my word, then you are truly disciples of mine, and you will know the truth, and the truth will make you free." So, in other words, knowledge alone is not enough. We have to act on that knowledge. So, the truth never set anybody free until it was acted upon, because ignorance and failure to act have the same result, nothing.
Well, exactly right. I mean, I tell people all the time, like, people will watch this podcast, this interview, and they might think, well, that's good information. I can see where my marriage is going wrong. But here's the thing, bro: the new information does not change your life. What changes your life is
Right.
radically seeking out and aggressively implementing new behavior. It's radically seeking out and
Yes.
aggressively implementing new behavior. And
Yes.
step number one to saving your marriage, like I'm talking about men because I work with men predominantly. For me, it's inappropriate for me to talk about a marriage situation with a woman. It, like the
Yeah.
men speak with the men and the women speak with the women.
Yes.
That's my belief. It's just completely inappropriate for me to be having those conversations with women when
Totally agree.
topics of sex are coming up, topics of intimacy are coming up. No. You talk to my wife, and I'll deal with the husband. It's like I speak with men, so I say when I'm talking with men, that's the reason. It's like really, couples counseling is not really a thing for me, because it's just a refereed argument is all it is. But no, you
Yeah.
have to radically seek out and implement new behavior. And the point that you pointed out there was the number one thing that you really need to seek out. The number one thing that's really going to radically change your life is discipleship. If you want
Yes.
to save your marriage, the thing that you need to be looking for is discipleship. It's not a book. It's not a piece of information. It's not a strategy. It's like, I need to submit to discipleship. And that could be you, that could be me, that could be the pastor of your church, that could be anybody. I'm not suggesting that it's you or me or anything like that. What I am emphatically stating, though, is that if you don't submit yourself to discipleship, you will not get better. You can't do this by
Absolutely.
yourself. And the Bible is very clear about this. Discipleship is absolutely required.
Yes. No doubt about it. So in your book, you talk about needing to unlearn some lies in order to succeed. Is that what you're talking about there, or is that something else?
The biggest lie that you've been told, the biggest lie or the biggest crime that's taken place is you've had your identity stolen from you. You don't know who and what you are. You don't know who
Yeah.
and what you're a child of. Like, if you're a Christian, if you're watching this, you're a child of the King. And the reason
Hmm.
you're not acting like that right now is because you've forgotten that, or you don't know that, or it's been dumbed down. Like, my beef with the modern Christian church is it's powerless. It's completely powerless because it's lost sight. It's been robbed of its identity. It's like we are children of the risen King. Do you understand? Do you understand what that means? And
Yeah.
I don't think I understand it, and I don't think you understand it, because
That's right.
do our lives demonstrating that we are children of the risen King, and are we exercising the power and the authority that's been given to us as our birthright, as heirs and co-heirs to the throne? It's like, I don't think so. It blows your mind. And it's like, step number
It
one is
does.
like, all if I'm working with you, David, all I need to do to take your life to the next level is help you remember who you are and help you understand who you are, and to unlearn the lie of the identity that you're small, you're powerless, you're weak, you're toxic, you're the cause of
Yeah.
problem. It's like, you're white, you're male, you're middle class. It's like you're the cause of every bane. You're the bane of every problem in society. It's like that's the identity that we've been
Right.
given.
Right.
It's complete
Yes.
nonsense. You are the child of the
Right.
risen King.
That's right.
That
Yeah. Oh man, there's so much to say on that. God is the creator of the universe. He's the one that spoke the galaxies into existence, and we are fashioned and made in that great image. And we are, as you said, co-heirs with him on the throne. It's mind-boggling. If that doesn't take your breath away, I would suggest you got to spend some time pondering that. It is so right in front of us that sometimes we don't see the forest for the trees. But when you think about that for a minute, there are profound implications there. And, it had profound implications on the way we live our lives and the way we behave, and especially with this conversation, how we treat our spouses, right? I mean, it's staggering, the implications there.
and one of the things that really irritates me, to be honest with you, my fight against the modern church. And don't get me wrong, I love the church, obviously, but it's like, I'm like, we want to empower, not disempower. And people say, oh, if it's God's will, if it's God's will, if it's God's will. I'm like, that's just an excuse for your failure. It's like, I mean, I've got an SMS message here. I've got a client. I mean, I can show it to you, but basically, like, the guy was diagnosed with a very serious, incurable illness, and he was down. I was talking to him in a coaching session, and he was down. And I said, what's wrong? He goes, well, I'm not just dealing with this. I'm dealing with the loss of my health now. I've been diagnosed with this. I'm like, rubbish. I'm like, get those words out. Never speak those words again. That's
Yeah.
rubbish. I'm like, you will
Hmm.
be healed of that. I'm like, what? When the doctor told you was incurable, what he actually meant to say was, in my very limited experience of medical practice, I've never successfully treated this. And he's imparting his limiting belief of what he is capable of onto you. I'm like, I promise you, you will be healed. How do I know? Because Jesus raised the dead, and he told me that I will do these things and greater. I'm like, all we need here, brother, is you need to be healed of an incurable sickness. I've been told that I'm going to do greater things than raise the dead. This is nothing like that. I mean, this is easy compared to that. I'm like, you will be here. This is about 3 months ago. Got a text message Saturday saying, or last Friday saying, just got out of the procedure, very groggy from the anesthetic, but 100% clear.
Wow.
100% clear.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I got to share a similar story. I got a good friend of mine. We've been friends for 40 years. And a couple of years ago, he was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer. And it metastasized to his lungs and his liver. And last fall, the doctors told him, look, we've done everything we can do. Go home and get your affairs in order. It's not going to be long. And he said, well, how long, doc? He said, the doctors told him, days, maybe weeks. Well, that was November of last year. And he just went in for a few tests last week, and he's completely clean, cancer-free.
Amen.
And, Amen. So isn't that glorious? So, those doctors, they're not God. That they should say it in different terms, and say, in my experience, this is what I've observed, but that doesn't mean you have to fit that mold, right?
Exactly.
There should be room for God to move and room for the doctor to be wrong. Because God is in the transformation business, and we are His disciples. And when we get this right, things can happen. But we're trying to focus here on marriage.
Yeah, let's pull it back. Pull it back. Yeah. Good catch there, Dave. Good
pull
catch.
It back in. Pull back in. I'm reeling it back in a little bit here. But anyway, I know that just as you've identified 3 very, very beneficial things to relationship, you've also identified 4 toxic behaviors in marriage. And could you speak to those? I have them in front of me, but I think you probably know them pretty well. So what are the toxic things that we engage in that damage our relationships?
Yeah. So the first one is escalation. So it's the habit of escalation, and a lot of these things we don't even know that we're doing. It's like, well, what it seems like we can take a molehill and turn it into a mountain.
Yeah.
Well, what about if we could take a mountain and turn it into a molehill?
Why not?
It's no less of a miracle to turn a mountain into a molehill than it is to turn a molehill into a mountain.
Yeah.
It's as equally as much a miracle going the other way. So the first habit is escalation, and that, again, that's the easiest way to look at that. It's like it's taking a molehill and turning it into a mountain. We can take nothing and turn it into something. That's the first habit. And of course, again, we've got to relate all of these back to how does it affect the 3 core elements of a marriage: emotional safety and security, mutual admiration, and shared vision. So if every time your wife tries to talk to you, you escalate it into an argument, just destroyed the emotional safety. It's just killed it, and the other aspects too. The second one is going to be really insidious. It's negative interpretation. And that's thinking the worst of your spouse. Only God can see into the heart of a man. If you want to utterly destroy a relationship beyond repair, question somebody's intentions.
Yeah,
you can question the outcome. You can say, hey Cody, like you acted in a way on my podcast that made me a little bit uncomfortable. It's like, okay, well, that might be true. But if you say you came on my podcast simply to discredit me and make me look silly, it's like, well, that you don't. Nobody has any right to determine that motivation. It's like, well, okay, if that's what you think about me, then I'm out of here.
Right.
So it's negative.
One of the things I want to add to that is when we work with couples in our groups, and that is if somebody says something like, no, that's not what I meant by that, you need to take them at their word. You can't sit there and dig your heels in and say, no, I know what you meant by that. No, if you want to rebuild the connection, you've got to take them at their word, because they if you ask them separately, do you want what's best for your spouse? Do you want the best possible outcome in your marital connectedness? the spouses will in a heartbeat. Yes, that's what I want. So why would they lie about something that critical? So yeah, you gotta take them at
Yeah.
their word and say, okay, I guess I interpreted that wrong.
Well, the easiest way to see that is like, I always ask a couple when I first talk to them, Dave, have you ever woken up in the morning and thought, I'm going to be a real a-hole today and really upset my wife? Have you ever woken up and thought that ever? One
I've
time?
never done that. Never
And
in
it's
my
like, you've
life.
asked your wife the same thing. Have you ever woken up and gone, I'm just going to be a real a-hole today and I'm going to go out of my way to upset my husband? I'm guessing that her answer will be the same. No, I've never woken up with the intention of upsetting my husband. So
Yeah.
then, coming from that place of understanding that neither one of us have ever we're not malicious, vicious, nasty people that have ever woken up with the intention of having a fight or causing pain. When that pain,
Right.
conflict, and tension comes during the day, can we agree that it's a miscommunication? Can we just agree
Hmm.
that we come from different backgrounds, different families, different culture, different whatever it is, right? What
Yeah.
I don't know what the difference is, but can we just agree that we've misunderstood each other or we've miscommunicated? And instead of negatively interpreting this situation and go, you intentionally tried to hurt me, and then escalating the situation to something
Yeah.
big, can we take
Yeah.
it down a notch? Can we go, okay, well, I know you wouldn't intentionally hurt me, Dave, or I know you wouldn't intentionally hurt me, Cody. So can we take it down a notch and lower the emotional levels and then talk about this when we're in a better condition?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a really good way to de-escalate any conversation, spousal or not. And that is, let's find some common ground. Let's find something that neither one of us would dispute and that we can both agree upon. And let's settle on that for a moment, and then we'll progress from there. And that can really defuse, a high intensity conversation.
Absolutely. It's just something very simple, like with the kids, right? So I mean, my wife's overprotective with the kids, and I'm probably like a little bit more. I'm like, where are the kids? I'm like, oh, they're just playing with the guns in the backyard. It's like, what? I'm not. Don't worry, they're not loaded. Yeah, I'm just joking. That never happens.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
never
yeah.
happens.
Okay,
But
okay.
it's like, we there's no doubt. I don't doubt that she's doing her best to protect the kids, and she doesn't doubt that I would ever do anything to harm the kids in any way, shape, or form. So it's like when we have that conflict, it's like, she thinks I'm being a little bit too relaxed, or I think she's being a little bit too protective. It's like, okay,
Yeah,
well, we both know that we love the kids immensely, and we both know that either one of us would never do anything to harm the kids. So we've got the same goal here, which is to keep the kids safe. Obviously, we're just seeing things a little bit different here. Maybe you could explain your point of view to me about what you think's going on here, and we can come to a compromise. So yeah,
right.
it's just having some strategies and and that's difficult, right? Because that's your conscious competence, and it's like getting that to the point, you've got to practice that, and it's awkward before
Yeah,
it before it transitions into that unconscious competence.
that's exactly right. And just this is such good stuff. So when you're having a conversation, I tell couples one of the best things you can say is thank you for sharing,
Yep.
because most of the time we're so busy thinking about what we want to say that we stop listening, right? So if you just forget about that, that's just shelved for the moment, and I'm just going to listen. And my response, I know ahead of time that my response is going to be, "Thank you for sharing." It just does something about increasing that intimacy and that relational connectedness. Another thing is you could say, all right, let me summarize what I believe you're saying. And then you paraphrase, and they might say, yeah, that's exactly right. Or they might say, no, that's not quite what I meant. Let me fill in the blanks here. And that will lead to a productive conversation. We call them staff meetings in our groups. You'll have a good staff meeting if you follow those guidelines.
Well, yeah, that's a great name for it. I mean, I call it set plays. Set plays wins games.
Okay.
You've got to have a set play. Like when you're talking to a couple that's in crisis, it's like, can we just agree that we don't know how to have a conversation? Can we just agree that we don't know how to have effective communication? So can we just throw out everything that you
Yeah.
think you know, and can we put a set play in place, which would be your staff meeting? So when we
Yeah.
want to have a conversation, or when we need to have a conversation, I call it a set play. You calling it a staff meeting. It's exactly the same thing. It's like, yes, we're going to go
Yeah,
to a
yeah, yeah.
structured conversation. This is not a free for all.
Uh-huh.
This is not, I yell
That's
at
right.
you yell louder, and then I yell back some more. It's like, this
Right.
conversation has structure. This conversation
Structure.
has rules.
That's a good rule. I like that structure. Excellent. Really good stuff. So the next one would be invalidation.
And validation, correct. And
So
this is
talk
more,
about that a little.
yeah, this is more insidious for men than for women, because we instinctively want to help the woman. We're problem
Yeah.
solvers. We find our own validity through helping people, but unfortunately, quite often in trying to help the woman, she doesn't. We invalidate her, right? So a woman might come home from work and say, "So and so was a real butthead at work, and they're just so rude to me, and it just upsets me." And as a man, I go into my problem solving mode, and I go, "Ah, I wouldn't even worry about that. The guy's just a butthead. Don't worry. He can't fire you. He doesn't mean anything." And we're trying to pull validation from solving the problem, but at the same time, it's just completely validating her emotion.
Right.
It's basically saying your emotion is not valid. The fact that you're upset is not valid. The wife comes home and paraphrase says, "I'm upset about something that happened at work," and the man goes, "Well, don't worry about it. There's nothing to be upset about."
Right.
And
So
it
what
just,
he's done is your invalidation is a great word, but in essence, what that spouse has done, and believe me, I've been there. Okay, I've
we
done
all
this.
have today,
But
probably.
but when you say, hey, look, you don't need to worry about that. That guy's just a moron.
Yeah,
Brush it off. What you're
yeah.
saying is he's not the problem. The real problem here is you. It's your reaction
Your
to what
reaction to
he
the
said or
problem.
did, and
Yeah.
that is insulting to I don't know what degree. I mean, how could somebody respond positively to that? We call this emotional responding. If someone
Yeah.
is venting an emotion like frustration or disappointment or whatever it is, we don't invalidate that emotion. We get on their level and say, wow, that must have really been hurtful. Tell me more. And then that person feels validated, and that fosters more intimacy and connection.
That's exactly right. And again, if you think about it, like bringing this back to the three pillars of building a marriage, it's like, well, when you basically invalidate that, when the woman brings an emotion to you and you invalidate it straight away, you're crushing emotional safety and security. Like she's not going to come to you again and share her emotions, because she's just
Right.
going to be invalidated, and that invalidation becomes more painful than actually not even talking about it. Or
Yes.
they just go elsewhere. They just stop talking to you and they go elsewhere. So again, it's not just understanding what the problem is. We have to relate everything back to the three pillars. Is this building or destroying one of those three pillars, or all of
Excellent.
those pillars?
Excellent. Really good information. So let's talk about withdrawal. What does that look like?
So that could be physical, or that could be emotional withdrawal. So again, another word for it would be abandonment. It would be abandonment, emotional abandonment. So
Uh-huh.
I have a thing with my wife. Like I'm a little bit hot headed. I know my weaknesses. So again, set plays wins games, Dave. That's what I say. Set plays wins games. So when I feel the blood rushing up, the flush coming onto my face, I feel the you know, that rage coming over me, and I know that it's going to be bad. I've told my wife ahead of time, when things are getting bad, when things are escalating and our set plays have not worked to de-escalate the situation and to continue it to escalate, I'm going to leave. I'm going to leave. I'm going to leave your presence. I'm going to leave the house. I'm like, but I'm not leaving you. I'm not abandoning you. I'm abandoning you. I'm doing it
Right.
because I love you and I will be
Right.
back. I'm
Right.
leaving to protect you, because
Yes.
it's going to be much easier to explain the absence than it is to explain the hand grenade that's about to go off. But
Amen.
I've told her ahead of time, right? I've said, hey, this is what's going to happen. I'm doing it because I love you. I'm doing it to protect you. I'm not abandoning you, and I will be back. And if I do leave, please don't chase me, because you'll make the situation work. And
Right.
that's an example of where what could seemingly be withdrawal is actually it's not. Like with the negative type of withdrawal would just be like when you just sit down, you just emotionally shut down,
Right.
and the woman doesn't know why you've shut down, or the husband doesn't know why, or you just go, I'm out of here, man, and you go down the local watering hole and you drink some cold ones with your friends, and you come back a day later or later on that night, and you, you've effectively abandoned your wife.
Right.
You've just left her in a time of crisis, and she doesn't know where you are, what's going on. How can she possibly feel safe under your
Yeah.
leadership if you're doing that?
Yeah. A personal story. Our first year of marriage was very rocky. We've been married for 22 years, my wife and I.
Wow.
But we had one of those conflicts, and I really didn't know what to do. I had none of these skills, and I got in my car, drove to the airport, got on an airplane, and flew out of town. And I didn't say anything like you just said. I just took off. And I don't know how we survived that. I don't know. I mean, but I just didn't know what to do. I didn't know what
Yeah.
else to do. And I'm an airline pilot, so getting on an airplane and flying out of town felt natural to me, right? So I'm sitting there in a hotel room by myself, stewing on all this. Just all these toxic thoughts are just
Yeah. Yeah.
snowballing out of control.
Yeah.
And God moved. God moved and brought a woman into my wife's life. And long story short, I don't have time to go into it all right now because we're kind of running late on time. But it's a cool story. But she said she ended up inviting us to a weekend called Marriage Encounter, and it was all God ordained. God brought this woman into my wife's life, and my wife called me up and said, "Hey, Dave, I think we're supposed to go to this thing." And God worked it out. And we got there. We went there. It was a turning point for us, and we've been doing marriage ministry ever since. Not in its present form, but it helped us so much. We learned so much that weekend that we said, "Wow, we got to continue on this path." And it hasn't been, a smooth road every step of the way. We've had our conflicts, but man, we are so much closer today because we have some of these tools, some of these coping skills, and some of these, the knowledge of what breaks down a relationship and the knowledge of what builds relational connectedness. We have the tools, and it's only when I get frustrated or, short tempered that I just choose not to use them. So we execute imperfectly, but man, it's made a world of difference.
Oh, it's why, I mean, the divorce rate's 50%, but it's worse than that because, I mean, if you survey the 50%, or when surveyed the 50% that stayed married, when you ask them, are you happy and satisfied in your relationship? It's like 92% say no.
Right. Isn't
So
that
the
a shame?
actual, yeah,
Hmm.
I mean, people just leave, and the ones that stay for whatever reason, maybe it is because out of their commitment to their vows, or maybe for whatever reason, right? It's like the majority of those. So really, only 4 or 5% of people are actually happy, satisfied, and fulfilled within their relationship, which is absolutely tragic because it doesn't
It
need to
is.
be that way, and it doesn't
Right.
take a lot to change it. It doesn't
Yeah.
take a lot.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. So you talked about your alcohol addiction and drug
Mm,
addiction early
mm,
on, a while back, and you are involved in some rehabilitation right now, some programs. So typically, the 12-step programs have a very, very, very poor
mm.
success rate. Most of those people relapse. They don't really have a lot of people they can brag about that have recovered. But in your programs, you get 80+% recovery. What's the difference? What are you doing differently in those programs?
I'm not doing anything. I'm allowing God to do the healing. Is what's going on. I'm allowing God
Okay.
to do the healing. So I'm also very particular about who I allow into it. So the success, like you have to be ready for radical ownership and radical responsibility,
Hmm.
and you have to be open to the truth. The path to recovery is it's simple. It's like know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. That is the path to truth. That is the path to recovery. It's the truth that will set you free. But here's the thing, right?
Right.
Everyone thinks, oh, the truth, that's easy. Well, Jesus told the truth, and he got himself killed, didn't he? If you want to piss somebody off, tell the truth. The truth
Yeah.
is the hardest thing to face, and why the reason why we're drinking in the first place is because we're not willing to face the truth. The reason why we're drinking is
Mm.
because the truth is so painful that we'll do anything to avoid facing that truth. And
Yeah.
I know for myself, like looking back now, I mean, it's hard for me to even think about some of the stuff that I did during that time. It's
Hmm.
I would rather just black it out and suppress it, and not, that's how painful it is for me to even just think about it inside of my head, let alone talk about it. That's how bad it
Right.
was.
Yeah.
And it's only actually shining light into it and confessing it, owning it, telling the truth, that it's like this, right? I mean, let me show you. I've got a light here, right? I've got a light. 100 times out of 100, how many times will the dark? If I turn light, if I shine light into a dark room, how many times out of 100 will the light win?
The light's going to win all the time.
It's going to win 100 times out of 100. The solution to darkness, and again, when I talk to people in the sort of the interview process, because it is a selection process, it's like, are you ready to shine light into the darkness? Because when we shine light into the darkness, you're going to see the truth, and the truth is going to be ugly. It's going to be what you've been running from. Are you ready to turn around and do battle with the monster instead of continue to run from it?
To hide.
Or do you just want an excuse for it? Do you just want an excuse for your drinking? Do you want an excuse for your running? Do you want an excuse for your behavior? Do you want to be right, or do you want to be sober? Do you want to be right, or do you want to be married? You choose, because the only way we're going to get through this is like, we have to shine light into the darkness. We have to deal with truth, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Well, we've talked about that. What is the renewing of the mind? We have to unlearn the lies of your stolen identity, and we have to transform your mind has to be renewed and transformed to adopt the identity of who and what you are. It's like, I went to Alcoholics Anonymous one time because they require you to raise your hand at the beginning, and like, for demonstration purposes only, you have to say, I am an alcoholic. And I'm like, and then they tell you that you have an incurable disease that you will have to manage for the rest of your life. I'm like, I'm not an alcoholic. I've been set free by Christ, and those who Christ has set free is truly free indeed. I refuse to deny the healing. I refuse to deny it by showing up and saying, for demonstration purposes only, I'm an alcoholic. And I refuse to believe that this is an incurable condition that I'm going to have to live with. None of that is biblical. None of that's biblical.
That's right.
I'm like, Jesus will set you free. And when you are set free, you are not an alcoholic. You've got to renew your mind. You've got to be transformed by the renewing of your mind. You've got to change that identity. You've got to shine light into your darkness. You've got to face the truth, and you've got to accept radical responsibility for your own life. You've got to accept radical responsibility for the damage that's been done under your leadership. You've got to accept radical responsibility for everything in my life. Look, it's like this. If I'm at the grocery store, I got 3 kids, right? I got a 2-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 6-year-old. If they find a hammer and they're out in the parking lot smashing taillights, whose responsibility is that? It's mine. I can't say
it's yours for not watching them.
So someone can't come and say, "Oh, Cody, your kids are smashing up cars out in the car park," and I go, "Well, they're doing it." It's like, no. Everything those kids do is my responsibility. Everything. Right. And I'm like, as a man, you've got to accept the responsibility that everything that's gone on in your house, in your marriage, in your life, which now includes your wife, because 2 flesh have become one. You're one and the same. Everything that's gone on is your responsibility. If you're an airline pilot, who's responsible for what happens on that flight?
Well, the Federal Aviation regulations say the captain is the final authority as to the operation of that aircraft. Air traffic control can tell you things. The dispatcher can tell you things. You can have all kinds of expectations thrown upon you, but at the end of the day, you're the one who has to do the carpet dance and explain yourself why you made the decisions you did. So they give captains a great deal of authority. In fact, it's the ultimate authority as to the operation of that aircraft. You can break any rule or regulation you have to the extent necessary to meet that emergency. And I think what we're talking about here in relationships is, many couples are in crisis, and that could be thought of as an emergency. So you know what? You got to be the captain and be the final authority as to the operation or the functioning of your marital relationship.
Exactly. And who's responsible for that crisis as well? When you get off that plane, you are held accountable for the success of that flight, or you're held accountable for the failure of that flight.
That's right. You
are accountable.
Pilots have gone to jail for making mistakes up there.
Yeah. And it's like, we got to be excuse free. It's like, you got to own it. You've got to own it. It's like, and again, that was like, I had this, it wasn't a vision, but it's like, I had this like kind of idea in my head where I just saw, like, in real terms, what was going on in my house. And it's like, Jesus has given me this precious vessel stewardship over this precious vessel and over this house. And it's like, this is what's gone on in my watch. It's like, I'm going to have to give an account for this. It's like, whatever's happened in this house is my responsibility. I've got to take ownership of that 100% radical responsibility. And I've got to own what's happened, because when I own what's happened and say everything that's happened is my responsibility, then everything that happens moving forward is also my responsibility. And that's a beautiful thing as well.
Yeah.
So really, the key, the short answer to the question is, what is the cause of the success? It's like, I'm very selective about who I work with. If you're not ready, if you're not at the point to where you're going, not another day, not another hour, not another minute am I going to live like this, I will do whatever it takes. One of the things I say is we choose convenience. We choose commitment over convenience. We choose commitment over convenience. That's a choice. And everyone goes, well, I'm committed. And it's like, yeah, until you have to do until you have to get your checkbook out, until you have to get your credit card out, then you're not so committed, are you? Or do you have to do I'll be doing an interview for somebody that wants to join the program, and they'll say, well, what time are the coaching calls? I'm like, wrong question, dude. What does it matter?
Right.
What does it matter?
Time to get there.
You'll make time to get there.
Right.
It's like the fact that you've just asked me what time are the coaching calls tells me that maybe you're not committed, right? It's like,
right.
And people are committed till they have to sacrifice sleep. People are committed till they have to sacrifice a meal. People are committed till they have to sacrifice a vacation or a new car. People are committed till they have to sacrifice themselves, their lifestyle, their friends. Right. And, I've got to know that, like, when we work together, it's like, you come on board and you genuinely, I've got to know that you'll come into town with an attitude of, I will do whatever it takes, and I'm committed to this regardless of the inconvenience. I choose commitment over convenience. And I know that I'm going to get the healing. I know that I'm going to be set free from this. There's no doubt in my mind.
Yeah.
And then if all three of those elements are present, we're getting the results 100%.
I'm starting to see why your book is called Cut the BS, a no-nonsense guide to happiness. You're bottom line kind of a guy.
Life is short. Life is short. We don't have time to. I would say you tell lies to your friends, and I'll tell lies to my friends, and we'll just be honest with each other. How's that for a deal?
That's good. I just want to point out one other thing here is the biblical account of the fall in Genesis 2 and 3. And, after Adam and Eve had sinned, God comes around and obviously knew where they were, but he says, Adam, where are you? And Adam's reply, well, I knew I was naked, so I hid. So there's that escape part, right? They're trying to hide. And then what did they do? They started pointing the finger at one another. Neither one of them wanted to accept the blame. Well, it's that woman you gave me. So it's the woman's fault. And if it's not her fault, God, it's your fault because you gave her to me. Wow. Adam chose to speak to God that way. That's a great example of what not to do when you want to make some changes, some positive changes.
It didn't work out too well for him, for any of us, really, did it? It's
not for any of us. All right. Well, Cody, I've really enjoyed our conversation. If people want to go further with you and get a hold of you, what's the easiest way to get a hold of you?
CodyButler.com is a great place to start. I'm not hard to find. It's like, again, if you want to talk to me, you'll find me. If I have to spell out where to find me, you don't want to talk to me that bad. So you'll find me if you want
That's
to.
Right. Very good. Well, I'll be sure to put links in the show notes. Cody, thank you so much for spending time with the Natural Nation today.
Thank you, David. Thanks for having me.
For more, go to the show notes page at davidsandstrom.com/93. There you can find an audio as well as a video version of the podcast and links to any of the resources that we mentioned. If you're enjoying the podcast, would you tell a friend about it? I sure would appreciate it. The number one way people find a podcast is that a friend tells them about it. And this information is hard to find. So if you're getting something out of this podcast, there's a good chance that someone you know might enjoy it as well. So I would really appreciate you spreading the word. That's it for now. Thanks for listening. I'll talk with you next week. Be blessed.